What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So a situation has been exploding online over the last week or so for a Nintendo Switch 2 case, that being from Dbrand, as they had a response that didn't go over well, and now they've come back to the table with a better response, and I want to go over everything that's happened here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Sony facing a lawsuit, this once again coming back to their control around the digital marketplace. And speaking of Sony, we also have PlayStation Plus Essential games. Take a look and see what exactly they have to offer for the month of July. So if you guys enjoy this video, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or link in the description down below. And we're gonna start today with Death Stranding 2 and Nintendo, because as people were going through the credits for the latest Kojima game, well, they realized something. Hey, Nintendo technically helped make this game? Yeah, you can see this screen capture here that was posted, this over on VGC, showing Nintendo pictures at the end, and it seems like they're credited for things like motion capture, which was the big one. And again, people were a little confused until they realized, oh yeah, Nintendo bought Dynamo Pictures a few years ago, rebranded it Nintendo Pictures, and Dynamo Pictures had worked on the first Death Stranding, to my understanding, and most likely what you're seeing here is just contracts that maybe have been already made previously before Nintendo had purchased them. Again, a couple of years ago, of course, Death Stranding 2 probably being in development and having all the early stuff drawn up before that, it's just kind of just fulfilling those contracts that were already in place. I mean, it kind of sets up for a kind of a funny situation with Nintendo, yes, helping out Kojima Productions and Sony, because XDev worked on Death Stranding 2. So Death Stranding 2 is a game that Nintendo and Sony kind of helped get out there along with Kojima Productions. Some were trying to link this to the idea that this means Death Stranding is going to Switch 2. Death Stranding 2 will also be there. Well, based on the fact that Death Stranding 1 has been going to a bunch of different platforms, which includes Xbox, and even Apple Silicon itself, right? The M1 chip. Yeah, I mean, I could see it eventually going to the Switch too. Sure, it's just kind of the way it works with Kojima Productions, Sony, and 505 Games, who came in and helped publish that outside of Sony's platform. So we'll see in the future, but it wouldn't shock me if it showed up. Is it because Dynamo Pictures signed a contract, then became Nintendo Pictures, and they were in the credits? Yeah, probably not. Also, we did get a release date for Hellblade 2 Enhanced Edition. This will, of course, be going to PlayStation 5 as well, which we can see this posted up. This is over on Ninja Theory's official account, saying it includes 60 FPS performance mode, updated photo mode, developer commentary, and Dark Rot challenge mode. It's coming out August 12th, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series XS, Xbox on PC, Game Pass, and Steam. You can pre-order now, and it will have a PlayStation 5 Pro Enhanced mode also. And look, this game looked really, really good on the Xbox Series. It's a technical marvel, you could say, sure. But it was limited to 30 FPS, and it felt sluggish because of that. So having the 60 FPS performance mode is great, and based on what I'm seeing in some of the more recent titles on the PlayStation 5 Pro, I would assume something like this is more or less going to make performance mode look closer to quality mode in general, while holding up the 60 FPS feel to it. So that's actually really cool to see, and this is a game that I'm sure will look really, really good there. Or, of course, you can make it look really good on a nice PC, and we'll see how that performance and this enhanced edition holds up there as well. Look towards August though to pick that one up. Oh, and one other release date to keep in mind is Everybody's Golf Hot Shots. This, actually we have a new trailer for it, which looks really cool because it also shows that Pac-Man will be a pre-order bonus, or according to the website, you can just unlock Pac-Man as you play, they say through normal progression. But the game is coming out September 4th in Japan and September 5th worldwide. It is coming to PlayStation 5, Switch, and PC through Steam, so we'll see how it holds up there, of course, on the Steam Deck. I'm sure it'll be fine. But in case for this game, I played Hot Shots, Everybody's Golf. I played that, I remember, a lot on the Vita, I think. So I do still look at it sort of as a handheld game, and because of that, I'm going to see how the Switch version turns out on the Switch too. The only thing with this is you get that 720p image that gets then stretched and blown up to 1080p screen, and sometimes it doesn't look the best. I'm sure it'll run great there. I'm interested maybe if they have the HUD elements set up at 1080p and it looks much cleaner that way. So that's what I'm gonna hold out for, because that's kind of where I'd want to play it. And again, a portable form factor. And I don't know, based on the 3-button shot setup they have, if the PlayStation Portal would hold up its end of the bargain there. But I guess we'll see in September when it releases. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Dbrand and their KillSwitch case, which certainly started to make headlines after people were just dropping videos of them using the case on the subreddit for Dbrand, and it wasn't like a glowing review of it. In fact, many people noticed a fault of this case that sort of puts into question the entire idea of it, since it's designed to protect your system, but it seemed to put the system in more jeopardy than anything else. Now, you can see a compilation of these videos that were pulled from that subreddit and posted on VGC, and the idea here is when you hold the Switch 2 by one of the Joy-Cons, all right, so like one side, for example, with your left hand, you're holding it up there, and you just hold on to the Joy-Con, as in not supporting the body of the Switch 2, it'll just attach and then fall to the floor easily. Like, there's little to no resistance there. And again, people were showing this consistently, like without fail. Hey, look, every time I drop it in there, the magnets connect, everything looks good. I hold the Joy-Con and then the whole thing just falls apart there. So what's going on, which it's funny, this is explained well in Welcome Tour, which for as much hate as that game gets, it does explain a lot of this stuff really well. And in fact, small things like the little gap that's there between your Joy-Con and the body of the Switch 2 where the magnets connect does have a purpose. It seemed like they found that if it was flat against like the body of the system, that there wouldn't be any kind of almost catch there when it starts to flex, so the entire thing would just fall right out. So there is a reason why the Joy-Con itself, kind of that lip extends into the Switch 2 body, because it is there to act as more leverage for the system to hold onto the Joy-Con, in tandem, of course, with those magnets. But the situation we're into with KillSwitch is it gets rid of that gap for the most part, so the leverage isn't there and the whole thing just kind of falls apart. Now, Dbrand did respond on Reddit, that subreddit where everyone's posting this stuff. It didn't go over great because they said, on these points, pointing to all the stuff that was being shown, we need to be a bit firm. Nobody routinely holds their Switch 2 like this. No matter how easy it looks to perform in the video, it just isn't a situation that someone's going to put themselves in without actively trying to. In much the same way that nobody was putting Mentos in their Diet Coke till they saw a clip of someone doing exactly that online. So, not a great response from Dbrand. And the point here that I would make is maybe people aren't going to do that every time, but the fact that it is a handheld system, and the idea is it's supposed to fit in with an on-the-go lifestyle if you want it to, or you leave it at home and it's docked and it's just about a console then. But you may be put in a situation it's not common, where you do have to kind of like one hand the Switch 2 and up, now I got to hold on the Joy-Con for a second here, and it's quick when that whole thing falls apart. So at that time, it might just take one. Maybe it falls, it flips over, and the screen hits the ground or something on the way down, and the whole thing's broken. Again, defeating the entire purpose of the KillSwitch, which is basically to protect the system, despite the name. Now, as this whole thing was evolving online, I did go back to it and look and say, you know what, I did a spot for Dbrand and KillSwitch when the system first came out. If you remember, during that midnight release stream, they sponsored it. I had a spot there and a link and stuff. I still had a couple of other spots that I was supposed to be doing here pretty soon, and I unfortunately had to put a pause on those because I looked at it, I tried it, I was like, okay, I see the fault here. I see the problem. And it doesn't seem like they were necessarily willing to go back to the drawing board and try to fix it and make it right. So I had to let them know I was pausing it. And then they came back and said that they were actually going to be fixing it. And then we had a new post that was made on the subreddit. We can see this over on their Reddit here, saying, after reading through your feedback, it's quite clear that our post was a spectacularly terrible response to the issue at hand. They even say you can go ahead and dunk on them for the next 6-7 months if you need to. The good news is everyone, whether or not you're experiencing this issue, is getting a free replacement set of Joy-Con grips. That it really is where the issue lies here, because you're gonna have to remove some of the material from one of them, right? So it kind of creates that gap. You might as well remove it from the Joy-Con side where you have those grips, and maybe it's a bit easier as opposed to the body, which kind of snaps at the top and the bottom there to grab on. We have two versions we're working through that are even better, okay? The first is fundamentally similar to our current offering. The key difference is that it features an even thinner retaining lip compared to the good stock we've already shipped. We pushed to the limit of mass producibility with this solution and have confirmed that it's both viable at scale and will provide a significant improvement over not just the problematic units, but even the current good stock. The second is an entirely new retaining lip design that fully resolves the detachment issue. With this design, everything will remain securely attached, even under the stress of shaking your Joy-Con like a maniac one-handed with no additional support on the body of the console. Effectively, it perform like a stock Switch 2. The problem is, we don't know if Solution 2 is actually feasible to mass produce. There is a very real possibility that the first unit we try to make gets stuck on the tool and turns into the world's most expensive paperweight. Solution 2 will be ready for a mass production trial on July 10th. At that point, we'll be able to determine whether we're going with Solution 1 or Solution 2 for everyone's replacements, as well as incorporate the retooled Joy-Con grips into our mass production pipeline. Once we've made that determination, we'll be emailing everyone whose KillSwitch has already shipped or is expected to ship with existing stock to let them know they're eligible for a free replacement, regardless of whether their unit was good or outside of tolerance. So that is a significantly better response than, hey, you guys just are holding it wrong. Now, again, the issue was there could be a way you end up holding it, 1 out of 1,000 times, but that 1 out of 1,000 times is going to send the body of your Switch 2 flying, and it seems like they at least realized where people were coming at from this, and of course, they sold a product that had a fault like this. So, them at least confirming this, realizing it, and now going back and replacing all the stock, whether you got what they say is like a good stock. They did mention that some of the units early on did have like more issue than they were expecting. So they were already going to replace those, and they already had good stock going out after the fact. But here they're just going to replace all of it. So you want to make sure you keep an eye out for that email or get in touch with them if you have to, if you don't get it, so that you can at least get your units replaced, and we'll see how this turns out there. I did tell them, hey, you know what? If you get all this resolved and everything looks good from the product perspective and people are posting videos of them now being able to hold their Switch 2 up with one hand on the Joy-Con and nothing's falling apart, we can resume the other couple of spots that I had lined up, and maybe that's something that we'll see later on in July, because for the most part, really haven't any issues with Dbrand. This was kind of an outlier from what I've seen. At least their skins are pretty good. I had a few of those and dropped them on the Switch 2 Joy-Cons, check them out, and it's kind of like an X-ray view, which is fun. So no real issues there, but the KillSwitch case certainly needs some work, and it seems like they're going to go back, resolve that, and try to fix it for everyone. So we'll keep an eye on this to see how their mass production trial turns out after the first week or so of July. Next up, let's talk about Sony and a lawsuit that's been brewing for a little while now, and it appears they are going forward with it. This is in the Netherlands, and we can see this statement that was issued. This over on the website saying, today, let's say Stitching and Consumment has summoned Sony in a collective lawsuit on behalf of Dutch PlayStation players. In February, the foundation announced the case after economic research showed that Sony has been exploiting its dominant position in the console market for at least 10 years and denying other potential app stores access to the PlayStation. As a result, at least 1.7 million Dutch PlayStation owners pay too much for digital games and in-game content. With the Fair PlayStation campaign launched in February, the foundation managed to attract more than 20,000 participants in the first few days. So they're going ahead with this, and we've discussed this at length many times now, that one of Sony's biggest challenges as they go forward and become, and I mean, they are a dominant player just in console gaming, but just in gaming in general, especially when it comes to the e-commerce side of things and selling digitally, they're going to have a harder time showing that they're not necessarily, I guess, a monopoly when it comes to clearly the PlayStation games, but just in general when it comes to digital storefronts for high-end game consoles, which, yes, is its own category at this time. And we see what's happening with Microsoft and the Xbox, where they're falling back more and more. And I mean, we might have a generation where PlayStation ends up 3 to 4 to 1 for Xbox consoles when it's all said and done. But you also have to remember that Sony has removed the ability to buy games as cards in retail stores. You can just buy currency that lets you then put money on the PlayStation Store, where they then control the pricing. It is interesting that they mention here the idea of other apps on PlayStation's console, so their ecosystem. Maybe Steam. That was one, right? It's okay. Steam sells PlayStation games, and occasionally they will have sales there, but it's not on the PlayStation 5. That's kind of an avenue that's being mentioned. And think about what's happening with Microsoft. It does kind of make me wonder if they're sort of looking ahead like, ooh, this could become a problem if we are viewed as a digital monopoly for an Xbox platform or just an ecosystem there. And you look at sort of what's happening with Apple, where they're just getting beaten up by Epic Games in the courtroom, and to the point where they're allowed to just kind of do processing away from the App Store for Fortnite. Something to keep in mind here just as it goes along, and maybe some other firms get the bright idea to do class action lawsuits, and who knows, maybe you get to a position where Sony becomes so dominant with their PlayStation 6, or maybe even PlayStation 7 by then, the way things tend to move at a snail's pace when it comes to consumer rights. Maybe you get to a position where the FTC or something gets involved and they try to break up this walled garden approach. It's something that Sony's going to have to really pay attention to here. But first, I guess we'll see how this class action lawsuit ends up in the Netherlands. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about PlayStation Plus Essential games that will be available starting July 1st until August 4th. We can see this over on PlayStation Blog, starting at the top with Diablo 4, Microsoft coming in strong here with, well, okay, but anyway, it's out of the PS5 and the PS4. That's a good one to drop in there. I know there's other ways they can make money and stuff, that being Microsoft, by dropping it into PlayStation Plus with additional spend after the initial download. Still, it's just, that's a more recent game. I know we've had also some day one releases into PlayStation Plus, but those have tended to be smaller, we'll say third-party or indie games, and Sony has doubled down on the idea of not putting any of their big first-party games into PlayStation Plus day one. But something like this with Diablo 4 being a bit more recent that is a good get there to add to your library through Essentials. Then we have King of Fighters 15. I'm not a big King of Fighters guy, but there you go, some variety at least. It's you got the RPG above that with Diablo 4. You got the fighting game here with King of Fighters 15. And then Jusant, which this is... Okay, so I played this back when it came out on the Xbox. And it's kind of an interesting puzzle climbing game. I kind of viewed it as a puzzle game, sort of, with climbing. And people say it's kind of a game where you can sort of just relax a bit as you're trying to climb up a big tower. But it's just a different game. And again, I think blends in really well here. Just not a lot of variety. Jusant, King of Fighters 15, and Diablo 4. They also mentioned the 15 years, or it's the 15th anniversary for PlayStation Plus, with a couple of other benefits, which, I mean, there's a game trial of WWE 2K25. There you go. They mentioned Valorant, PlayStation Plus pack. Sony Pictures Core. Yeah, it's not a great celebration for charging people 15 years PlayStation Plus, but hey, there you go. Maybe there's some other things they have up their sleeves as we hear about Extra and Premium Tier, but for the most part, not bad for PlayStation Plus Essentials for the month of July. So make sure you claim every one of these games because, well, if you already have PlayStation Plus Essential, you may as well. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, did you have a grip or casing that you used for your Switch 1? 65% say no, 35% say yes. I said Switch 1 specifically because, look, there's an 8-year cycle where at some point in time, if you're going to get a grip or case, you probably did. And if you didn't, there you go. Like now, there are people with the Switch 2 who are I still think try to pick and choose which case they want to get, if they want to get one at all. So with Switch 1, it's like some people probably went through multiple grips or cases, but clearly there's a big audience who are looking for a good way to protect their system or just get better ergonomic handles or grips for the Joy-Cons, which they're larger, but they still have that situation of hand cramping, and it's not the best thing necessarily to hold on to there when you're playing a game. So at least having a good grip, I get that there. But yeah, it's unfortunate the way it's going down with Dbrand, but at least they're looking to correct that, and maybe this will be kind of a small blip on the radar for them with what's turning out to be a pretty fast start for Nintendo with the Switch 2 and what will most likely be a long generation. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Mobik, who says, if Drag X Drive was a Jet Set Radio style character and inlines with popping colors, the game would be so much fun. I mean, I understand why they went the way of doing like the wheelchair basketball with the two Joy-Con in mouse mode. It makes sense. You're kind of rolling the wheels, which use the Joy-Cons to do that. I get the idea though of, hey, if this just looks somewhat colorful and interesting, it might be more exciting for people. What it looks like, the more I thought about it, I looked at it, I said, it looks flat and generic. It looks like the tech demo of you trying to present and pitch a game before you do all the character design and creation, and it looks like a lot of placeholder stuff right now. So it seems that that's where they were going to leave it. They're charging $20 for it. It's digital only. So the look does kind of line up with the release setup as well. But yeah, it feels like it could have been so much more, but maybe Nintendo wasn't willing to place that kind of a bet on Drag X Drive. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you wanted to see one of those game cartridges for the Switch 2 that also work on the Switch 1. I even did a teardown for that in a video. I'll leave that in the video right below. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.